Back in 2008, Paul Thomas Anderson gave us There Will Be Blood, a slow-burning character epic. In 2025, he returns with One Battle After Another, a sprawling, political, and deeply emotional film inspired by Thomas Pynchon's Vineland. It's messy, it's violent, it's heartbreaking, and it refuses to give you a clean victory. Today, we're breaking down the story, scene by scene, and unpacking its ending, what it literally shows us, and what it really means. The film begins not with peace, but with chaos. We're thrown into the late 70s, following the revolutionary group French 75. They're staging raids, embarrassing the authorities, and living the life of underground militants. Among them is the magnetic Perfidia Beverly Hills, played with power and swagger by Teyana Taylor. One of their most daring operations humiliates Colonel Lockjaw, a man whose personal obsession with perfidia will one day fuel a vendetta against all of French 75. The sequence is exhilarating, but Anderson drops clues that this isn't just political, it's personal. Lockjaw's infatuation turns to hatred, and the revolution's glory days curdle into long-term consequences. Then, a hard cut to the present. We meet Bob Ferguson, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, once a revolutionary, now a man in exile. He lives in a makeshift home with his daughter, Willa, played by Chase Infinity. Their lives are modest, radios, cooking, survival lessons, but the bond between them feels real. Bob is scarred, paranoid, and weary, while Willa is spirited, curious, and determined to understand the world outside her father's paranoia. But peace never lasts long. One night, Willa is kidnapped. The culprits? Lockjaw's men, dragging Bob's past back to the surface. This is the film's inciting incident, and it turns the story into a rescue thriller. Bob must reconnect with his old comrades from French 75, people who have either sold out, gone underground, or tried to bury their pasts. Sensei Sergio, Benicio del Toro, and Deandra, Regina Hall, return to his side, while memories of Perfidia hang like a ghost in every conversation. Meanwhile, Willa proves she isn't a passive damsel. In captivity, she learns to manipulate her captors, weaponizing knowledge of her parents' past. These scenes make it clear this is as much her story as Bob's. From here, Anderson layers chase scenes, betrayals, and tragic sacrifices. Bob discovers that the past isn't just history, it's alive. Old comrades resurface, some willing to help, some willing to sell him out. One standout sequence, Bob and Sergio storm a convent-turned hideout, where revelations about Perfidia's disappearance and Lockjaw's rise come to light. Here, the film's theme crystallizes. The revolution wasn't defeated by ideology, but by compromise, betrayal, and the personal grudges of powerful men. Willa, meanwhile, fights back. She earns our respect as she escapes small traps, manipulates countersigns, and makes choices that directly shape the war between Lockjaw and her father. The final act piles on violence and loss. Avanti, one of Bob's few remaining allies, sacrifices himself to free Willa, dying in a hail of bullets. His death hits hard. Anderson frames it not as cheap heroics, but as a painful, necessary act. Willa herself lures one of Lockjaw's lieutenants, Tim Smith, into a crash, killing him with sheer cunning and survival instinct. Lockjaw, played with terrifying gravitas by Sean Penn, becomes the monster at the center of the storm. He is shot, maimed, even left for dead, but he keeps coming back, his hatred fueled as much by obsession as ideology. The final confrontation is messy and brutal. Bob and Willa reunite amid wreckage and blood, scarred but alive. Lockjaw, gasping and broken, is ultimately dispatched not by Bob, but by the larger machine around him. He's eliminated by shadow forces, his body burned, his image erased. In other words, the system eats its own. The last sequence is quiet. Bob and Willa, exhausted, sit together. She receives a letter from Perfidia, the mother figure whose choices have haunted both their lives. The letter doesn't bring resolution. Instead, it pushes Willa to keep moving. The final shot? Willa walking into a protest in Oakland, the letter in her pocket, her father watching with pride and dread. Johnny Greenwood's score swells, mournful but alive. Literal ending, Bob rescued his daughter. Lockjaw is dead, the mission is over. Thematic ending, the battle never ends. Systems of power replicate, ideologies twist, and the cycle of violence keeps spinning. Bob's generation fought one war, Willa will fight another. The title says it all, one battle after another. It's not about closure, it's about inheritance. Willa inherits not just her father's survival skills, but also the burden of his unfinished fight. Memory versus erasure. Who tells the story of revolution? The state erases, the survivors remember. Parenthood and legacy. Bob doesn't just fight for Willa. He confronts the cost of raising her in the shadow of his past. Violence as ritual. Anderson refuses to glamorize the gore. Every fight has a cost. Every victory feels incomplete. Cycles of power. Killing Lockjaw isn't enough. Another Lockjaw will always rise. One Battle After Another isn't a neat action movie. It's sprawling, uneven, and deliberately uncomfortable. Anderson mixes operatic violence with tender father-daughter intimacy, messy political allegory with brutal realism. What saves it from despair is Willa. In her, we see the possibility of change, a new generation who can take the lessons of the past and maybe do something better. The revolution never ends. It simply passes hands. And that's the story of One Battle After Another, a film about fathers, daughters, memory, and the endless cycle of struggle. It's not about winning once and for all. It's about surviving, remembering, and fighting again. One battle after another.